College professors of Reddit. What's your "I'm surprised you made it out of high school" story? My wife has had multiple students who are fundamentally technologically illiterate. Numerous students have had no idea how to use Word or Excel, including one who used their email as a word processor. The university provides students with Office. There have also been students who struggle with installing programs on computers. What's disconcerting is it's becoming an increasingly common issue as an older millennial. The idea that kids are becoming less technologically proficient is so bizarre. I'm unfortunately not surprised. Back when I was at the uni, we had a IT 101 class which bored me to hell and back because I've been tinkering with PCs since I was a kid. Thanks Dad for that 3. However, for many of my peers this class was clearly vital because they had zero understanding on how to do extremely basic things. For example, one exercise we had to do was this. Create a folder. In said folder, create 3 folders. Leave the first empty. Put an image called in the second and a text file called in the last. Compress the whole structure in a zip file and send it to the teacher via email. Overall, something that takes 3 minutes. 5. If you're triple checking things out like I do. Well, by the end of the class, an hour and a half long. A lot of my peers still weren't done with the exercise as they didn't know how to open Paint to create the image file, how to access the contextual menu, etc. Thing is, I graduated in 2017, not 1987. You'd think they'd have mastered that stuff to a T, and yet I ended up taking a similar class. Though I can't for the life of me remember. This was like 2012-ish if I had to, or I thought it would be a decent elective. It was by far the most mind-numbingly boring class I think I've ever had to sit through. Now, my college was pretty diverse in terms of age group, community college and all that, so I wasn't terribly surprised to see Gen X and even a couple of boomers in there. And struggling. But the people my age who, even with the help of the assigned book, which was honestly a great book for showing precisely what to look for and what to do. So kudos to the professor for knowing their demographic, struggled with even the most basic of computer functions, confused me. Like, even my slightly older millennial gen, I graduated high school in 2007, had computers at school. So I was utterly befuddled. The professor ended up being glad I was there though, because I would literally do several classes worth of work in one sitting. And because I had no choice but to be physically present for attendance laws because I was there. Was pretty much a second person to help people get through their assignments and explain things. Honestly, I think it is dependence on overly user-friendly UIs. Something utterly simple like an iPad, where you can just turn it on and it works, but they have no idea how it works, is the first and only type of computer that some of my classmates have ever used. Last semester I had to work with an undergrad who didn't know what software updates were and had never done them on his laptop. So when he tried to install up-to-date GIS programs, they would not run because his OS was so out of date. I had a student who told me, being 100% serious, that he wouldn't be presenting on his assigned day because he didn't do the assignment and he'd go the next day. The presentation had been given with due dates over 2 weeks earlier. When I told him that wasn't how college worked, he claimed discrimination and told me he had accommodations for his disability that allowed him more time. Once he pulled that card, I got the department head involved and she laughed. The guy failed. To clarify, he got double time on exams to allow for a learning disability. It doesn't excuse him for deciding not to do the work necessary for the class. Okay, and as someone who does have accommodations, the etiquette is to ideally ask before the assignment is due and explain that you're having issues with it. If you have to ask on the day of, you leave it to the instructor's discretion whether they take marks off or not. I taught English as a second language at a community college for a decade. My colleagues and I were pretty tough on the academics, but it paid off when our students started regular classes. Often I ran into my former students around campus and asked them how things were going. I lost count of the number of times they expressed disbelief at how badly their native-speaking American classmates were at writing sentences, doing math, and giving presentations in front of a group. I am occasionally baffled by how badly some people are at writing. I mean, I'm not Tolkien, but I know how to make a coherent point in a specified format. Like, in college I took a writing class where the teacher would have us critique each other's writing occasionally. And it's supposed to be constructive criticism. So we can't just tear them a new leader asshole. The first time I had to do that, we had been assigned to write an essay describing someone we knew. The person I had to critique didn't even write an actual essay. They wrote a list of descriptions of this person. Joe has brown hair. Joe has green eyes. Joe is like this. Joe does that. Blah blah blah, you get the idea. I ended up going with something along the lines of it has all the details necessary to be good. You just gotta work on the format a little. Not a professor. But as a college freshman I took advanced English with a student who didn't know how to write a research paper or even possibly read I don't know. When I realized she didn't know how to research, I gave her my sources and showed her how to navigate them. The next class when we were supposed to edit each other's rough drafts, I handed her my paper to edit. She gave it back to me after 10 seconds without reading it and said it was good. She then handed me her paper and it was just a list of random dates. I feel your pain. Once I made the mistake of letting a classmate borrow my finished paper to see the structure and how to organize the sources. She copied my entire work and changed 2 or 3 words because she didn't know how to do it on her own and didn't want to try. I needed to email our professor with proof that it was my work and the whole situation was a mess. I never did it again. She made me develop some serious trust issues. LOL. And this is how my college boyfriend and I broke up after being together for 3 years and how he was kicked out of the school. The only exception to your story is he was a great writer but was too drunk to care. Till I failed year 12 and still could have gone on to university. I just applied to go back to school after working customer service for 10th Red is giving me hope. I'm finishing up my degree after a short stint in baseball. Terrible grades before leaving college the first time. 3. 8 right now with a wife, 2 kids and a job. It's all about perspective, planning, and willpower. You got this. I had a student include numerous emojis in a term paper. A different student came to my office a week after the final and asked me why she had failed the course. She hadn't turned in a single assignment or written the final. I did once write a short paper on the use and interpretation of emoji over time. It was a nice excuse to use them in a serious academic packet. I worked at my university writing center and saw a lot of really terrible writing. So many poorly written essays. I really don't know how you can graduate from high school without at least being able to perform simple tasks like point to your thesis statement. The whole point of a writing center was to teach students to correct their own work. But there was a direct correlation between how awful a paper was and how likely the student was to throw it at you and say, "I'm going to go have lunch. Will you have it fixed in an hour? Then try to leave." The tutors all got really good at an authoritative. Stop right there. Sit down. Now let's talk about how you are going to improve your paper. The most frustrating papers were the science majors. I could never tell if the paper was terrible or I just wasn't following the details of their experiment on chlorinated aliphatic hydrocarbons or whatever. The absolute worst was the English master's degree student who came in several times with absolute gibberish. To be fair, English was his second language, but are you absolutely sure you do not want to consider a career change? My good sir? Science major here. My grandmother has her master's in English and has been double-checking papers for me my whole life. She's the smartest woman I know. And I love her dearly. My second year of college was eye-opening for her. Will your teacher understand what you're trying to say in this report? Is stereoisomer one word or two? Are you sure this sentence means something? She's an absolute gem. But I correct my own stuff now. But I'd bet her feedback has made you a better writer by now. Also, people with writing skills will come in handy when you're an accomplished scientist trying to write pop-sci digests of your research to increase your reach. I have a friend with a physics Ph.D. who is facing just that. And it's fun to read his drafts and ask lots of stupid questions, i.e. point out where he skipped some context that non-scientists would need explain.
Hey guys, if you like this video then smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more contents like this. And don't forget to press that bell icon to get notified for future videos. Thanks for watching. Click here to see more videos.